folks, welcome back to My Kitten Reads. I'm Eleanor and this is my second attempt at a February Reads. So this was already a week late and then I tried to record last night and did the whole thing before realising that I hadn't hit record on my phone. So I've double checked, this time I have. So this is what I read in February of 2025. So it was a pretty good reading month. I think I read 12 things. As you might suspect, if anyone's watched my videos anytime recently, a lot of Austen variations, because I found A, at least one new author, and B, 3 of my preferred authors released new stuff that I wasn't quite expecting. So that was fun. But I did get some goals reading going, so that was good as well. Not every goal, but some goals. So what did I read? So I started the month with Pride and Prejudice and Plain Speaking by Lara Bekendick. So this is when Darcy discovers Elizabeth's opinion before he proposes, or at least very close to the proposal. He decides to make amends by plain speaking to everyone. So he's essentially going for blunt honesty when dealing with Bingley, blunt honesty when dealing with Lady Catherine, blunt honesty with everybody in an attempt to win over Elizabeth. So that's fun. Then my one physical book was actually a reread, which is not great for my physical TBR goal, but Living on Stolen Land by Anne Boleyn Quirmelina. So I read this first a few years ago. It's a sort of prose poetry manifesto regarding the best way to work with Indigenous people in Australia, acknowledging the past, how to move forward and interact with them in the future, for the benefit of everybody and of country in particular. So it's very well worth a read. There might actually be a review of it somewhere on, like a proper review somewhere on this channel. It's quite possible. I tend to do that with some of my really powerful Indigenous books. But yes, that was a really good reread. Then I read Scales of Resistance by Juliet Kemp. So this was the first novella in a while published by 12th Planet Press. It's a bit of a queer story. It's space opera with space dragons. And essentially the crew of a trading vessel who occasionally help out the resistance to this sort of large empire, come across someone that one of their members used to be in love with, and it was a bad breakup, and she's got an opportunity to actually do some real damage for the resistance. So if they'll agree with go with her. So it's a novella and it's a story with adventure, but it's also about regret and about coming to terms with your past, and gaining closure. So it was very good. I very much enjoyed it. And then I read The Season of Dragons by Tansy Rayner Roberts. So this, it was so good. So good. It was, as usual with Tansy, right up my alley. This is essentially Pride and Prejudice with dragons and Caroline Bingley as the heroine. So it hits all the story beats of Pride and Prejudice, but has differently named characters, and in this particular world, it's a Regency-esque world where dragons are the ones that control the social season each year. And in this one, Caroline Bingley is our heroine. So it's hilarious, it's witty, it's a great romp, makes you like a Caroline Bingley character and gives her some proper motivation. And, you know, there are dragons and she gets her man. And, you know, if you've ever thought about Lady Catherine as a dragon, this time she is actually a dragon. So loved that so much. Then I went on a spree of Austen variations. So there was Darcy, Knight Errant by Jamie Marie Lang, who is a new author to me. In this one, Elizabeth meets Georgiana first while doing charity work in London. And so then her introduction to Darcy is very, very different. Then there was Aunt Felicity by Shana Grandison. So this one is one where it goes way back to when Mr. Bennet's father was trying to force his young daughter to marry one of the Mr. Collinses in order to have their bloodline always at Longbourn. She does not wish to do this. She meets Reginald Fitzwilliam, who is the second son of the Earl of Matlock, who is trying to force him to marry the daughter of a duke that he despises for political reasons. And he is practicing to be a barrister, is working for his chambers in Meryton, meets Felicity. They realise they're in the same boat, and they run away together and elope. Have a life together. The Mr. Bennet we know still ignores her when their father dies. Doesn't bother to reach out because it's too much effort. And then the Colonel Fitzwilliam, her son, now that she's the Countess of Matlock because the elder son died, and so the second son is now the Earl. So her son, Colonel Fitzwilliam, gets a letter from Darcy talking about this woman that he's insulted. And Aunt Felicity goes, right then, it's time for me to go back to Meryton. Particularly because they've discovered something in the entail documents that has rather a big effect on who is going to inherit Longbourn. So she goes and she starts interfering and ticking people off and making people make different decisions. So that's fun. Then there was Vicious Propensities by Jan Rowland, in which instead of there being rain from the time they meet Mr. Wickham to the day of the Netherfield Ball, it's good weather. And so they actually are in the company with Mr. Wickham far more. And Elizabeth starts to observe some very, very disturbing behaviours. And therefore she's in a better frame of mind to deal with Darcy when the Netherfield Ball happens, because she's suspicious of Mr. Wickham. So that's fun. Then there was a really short little story called Darcy and Elizabeth's Valentine's Meet Cute by Melissa Ann, in which they meet in a bookstore for the first time instead of in Meryton in London. And then another Jamie Marie Lang book, Pax the Canine Cupid, where Elizabeth has a very large, very protective, very loyal dog that comes to find her when she's tending to Jane at Netherfield, and seems to like Mr. Darcy, which perplexes Elizabeth because she's used to her dog being quite a good judge of character. So that changes the course of events because her dog likes Darcy and Darcy seems to like her dog. And this is not the man she thought she knew. And then finally, Jane's Estate by Elaine Burkett, in which things go a bit differently, and Jane inherits the Longbourn estate upon the death of her parents because the Collinses have already passed away, and she has to learn how to become a stronger, sterner woman with authority. So by the time they meet the Bingleys and Mr. Darcy, she is in a very different frame of mind. So it's nice to see a story from Jane's perspective. Then the final two things I read this month were things that were on my TBR. I'm not doing a TBR this month because I never ever stick to it, so I'm just going to go back to my usual. But I finished my audiobook, which was Black Duck, A Year at Yumborough by Bruce Pascoe and Lynn Harwood. So this was... I didn't love it as much as I love Dark Emu. It was more of a train of thought journal over a year, rather than having one sort of through line of nonfiction, one sort of story. It's set sort of during / after COVID, after the fires in Victoria that were just pre-COVID, after the furor over Dark Emu blew up in the right-wing press in Australia. And so it's a lot of dealing with the consequences of those things whilst trying to run a farm which employs Indigenous people to grow Indigenous foodstuffs from Australia. But Bruce Pascoe also tends to wander back to memories of the past as well. So I found it a little bit difficult to connect to because it was really hard to grab onto the narrative because there was some thematic stuff about grief and legacy, but yeah, it was sort of hard to grab onto in terms of thematically. So it was interesting, and other people might like the style better than I did. And then I finished off the month by finishing Decolonizing Methodologies, Research and Indigenous Peoples by Linda Tawai Smith. This is an academic text that I started reading because my brother bought me a collection of essays responding to said text, and I realised that I probably wasn't going to understand the essays if I didn't read said text first. So it's a seminal. I read the 3rd edition because it was originally published in, I think, the late 90s, but my edition has a bunch of stuff from the 2000s as well. And it's essentially about, first part is very much about how research has affected Indigenous people and how Indigenous peoples around the world view research in consequence, how to decolonize the idea of research, and how to build methodologies that work in an Indigenous context while still having to balance regular Western research requirements. Because sometimes those are two opposing things. And so the ethics of how to deal with Indigenous research is a lot of stuff as well. So it was quite interesting. A lot of it probably went right over my head, but I think I've got enough of a grounding now to go and read that other book. So that is what I read in February. So there was nothing from my physical TBR, unfortunately, but there were three books. Yes, 3 books by non-white authors. Actually, they were all by Indigenous authors, and 1 book with a queer story. So that's not too bad. And because I think I read 12 things, it put me slightly ahead on my goal for the year in terms of the 10 books I have to read every month to make the 120. So I think I was up to 22 books. So yay! Well, no, 21, because I only read 9 things in January. But yes, that is what I read in January. If you want to discuss any of them, please comment below. If you would like and subscribe, that'd be really, really great. And I will see you all again really soon. Bye.